So yesterday we had the first joint event of the Biden-Harris ticket, with Kamala Harris, of course, joining Joe Biden on the ticket the day before yesterday. I covered this event live on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook, and I have to tell you, the event was remarkable in how unremarkably normal it was. And when things haven't been normal for a long time, that actually sort of makes an impression on you. And what I mean by that is Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were able to stay on topic, put together a simple, coherent narrative about why we should vote for them rather than Trump-Pence. They spoke in complete sentences, finished thoughts, and it sounds like a very low bar because it is, but that's what's wild about it. A whole bunch of stuff is now unusual because of the last 3.5 years of Donald Trump. Super interesting, by the way, that the viewership for this event was many times higher than the viewership for Trump's press briefing, which was scheduled at essentially the same time. And, you know, there might be some novelty element. Biden-Harris out on the campaign trail is a new thing, and maybe that's generating interest. But there was this sense of, hey, this is kind of normal, and we like it. Let's look at a few clips. Here is Joe Biden introducing Kamala Harris and using this terminology of whining, which is interesting because when Trump first spoke about Harris on Tuesday during the press briefing, I said, he's just whining about her. And that's exactly the same language Joe Biden used yesterday.
You all knew it was coming. You could have set your watches to it. Donald Trump has already started his attacks, calling Kamala, quote, nasty, whining about how she is, quote, mean to his appointees. It's no surprise, because whining is what Donald Trump does best, better than any president in American history. Is anyone surprised Donald Trump has a problem with a strong woman or strong women across the board?
Then Kamala Harris speaking, and speaking quite compellingly, going right after Trump. And in watching this, it is really difficult to imagine how Mike Pence does well against Kamala Harris in a debate.
Trump is also the reason millions of Americans are now unemployed. He inherited the longest economic expansion in history from Barack Obama and Joe Biden. And then, like everything else he inherited, he ran it straight into the ground. Because of Trump's failures of leadership, our economy has taken one of the biggest hits out of all the major industrialized nations, with an unemployment rate that has tripled as of today. This is what happens when we elect a guy who just isn't up for the job.
And then here is Kamala Harris focusing right in on coronavirus, which I think is smart. I mean, when you look at polling, coronavirus is one of the top issues on which Trump is most upside down, where people think he has failed. And coronavirus is regularly in the top 2 issues for what matters most to the country right now. So I believe this is the right way to hit Donald Trump.
Now, when other countries are following the science, Trump pushed miracle cures he saw on Fox News. While other countries were flattening the curve, he said the virus would just, poof, go away. Quote, like a miracle. So when other countries opened back up for business, what did we do? We had to shut down again. This virus has impacted almost every country. But there's a reason it has hit America worse than any other advanced nation. It's because of Trump's failure to take it seriously from the start.
So here's my thought. Even if you don't like Kamala Harris in terms of her politics, if she is to your right, as she is with me, the energy she's bringing is much needed, and it's a noted counterpoint to Trump-Pence. And in fact, it appears that that's exactly how polls show people reacting. Harris, of the 4, Trump, Pence, Biden, Harris, Harris is the only one polling with net favorability, meaning favorability exceeds people who view her unfavorably. And this is an early sign that from a strategic standpoint, this may have been a very good pick. It all remains to be seen. Next week, we'll have the DNC. The next week after that, we will have the RNC. Then we will be close to debates. And so it's going to be, I mean, listen, this is the election. We're weeks away. It's going to be a very busy couple of months, and we're going to be with you for the entire thing. And August 23rd will be the 15-year anniversary of the David Pakman Show. We'll be running a beautiful, possibly illegal membership special. And I encourage you to get on our newsletter at davidpakman.com. You'll get an email on the 23rd telling you how to take advantage of this. It's just a crazy, crazy membership discount. If you love feeding your intellectual curiosity, but you're always struggling to find the time, check out one of my all-time favorite apps called Blinkist. Blinkist lets you consume an entire book on your way home from work. They take thousands of popular nonfiction books, condense each one into text or audio that you can get through in just 15 minutes, and you get all of the important core ideas and information from that book. It's perfect if you don't have enough time to do all the reading you want to do, or if you just want to sample a book before you buy the entire thing. I recently read A Brief History of Time, of course, by the great Stephen Hawking. This is a book that I have been aware of for so long, and other things got in the way, and it was fantastic to check it out on Blinkist. Blinkist has books on politics, philosophy, science. They have 27 different nonfiction categories, and a subscription is only about $8 a month, and you get the entire library. But you can try it totally free and get 25% off a subscription when you go to Blinkist.com/Pakman. I've put the link right underneath this video.